Computer. Good. So welcome to, well, this is July's book club, although it's in August, but having had a week away, it's a little bit late. And for those that understanding, this is really what club's all about. Yeah, continue that personal development, but once you've read a book, give us a chance to actually talk about it, because it's amazing. If you get a number of people reading something, other people will see things in that book that perhaps you've missed, or just to reinforce that knowledge. So this was our book of the month, and Simon Sinek's Infinite Games. So has anybody read any of other Simon Sinek's books before?
No.
No, I haven't, no.
His most famous is Start With Why. That's been out for a few years now, which is really good. And Leaders Eat Last is another one of his. So he's very good. He's sort of I think he's similar to Jim Collins in his analytical approach to getting data behind what he talks about. And he's a very good speaker. For those that watched him on the YouTube videos, a lot of his stuff he puts on the videos as well. And so he's definitely worth listening to. Hopefully we'll get him at one of our BFs one day, so it'd be good to get him to come and talk, and so definitely worth sort of seeing when you can. So this is a little bit about him. You over there, because that's where the camera is. So he's done a lot of TED Talks. I think he's Start With Why. He's been one of his most popular. So he's from that photo, he's not that old. So I think he's quite switched into the way that business is working at the moment. So have you've got your copy of your book, have you? There. So we'll sort of do what we normally do, is sort of flick through chapter by chapter. And he starts off with the Vietnamese story, which is quite good, and that opens it up because he then talks about it later. So what was your sort of take on this sort of first part on finite and infinite games? So what sort of jumped out for you, Bruce, on that?
On the first chapter, to do with the bit to do with the war, or
no, the fight. I mean, the war bit didn't really. He just sort of sets the scene, and then he talks about it later on. So
I have to admit that I haven't actually read the book, but I watched the video. So,
okay.
But yeah, so, hopefully, well, I've skipped through bits of the book. For me,
the first bit was the difference between finite and infinite games. So I've put a bit of a summary of the key points up on there.
Yeah. I think for me, the big takeaway was really having a cause, that would almost live forever. So everybody would have, real clarity as to why we're here, why we're doing this, and that cause, if it's big enough and meaningful enough, then that creates just the right context that you need, and that will live forever. And it makes the decision making a lot easier. And the company can pivot, but still operate within that cause. So I think the cause is the biggest thing. But the business sort of running forever. So thinking about ensuring that the business will run after, for instance, I leave IT Dev, and so it's not finite. It's not just for a period. It's all about building something that will live forever, fulfill that cause forever, and building amazing teams to do that. And I think having teams where the teams are so on board with the cause that actually they don't need to be controlled closely. They can make the decisions themselves, and by forming a strong team, Yeah, interesting is talking about, at one point he was talking about, was it the Greece army, and how they had reservists and they'd be trained up at 18, but when they were called back, into service, maybe they might be 40 years old. They bring exactly the same, the same group of people back for that unit.
Mm, mm.
So it's all about building that really strong team that have that strong cause, and so they were my main takeaways. I guess quite a few things there, but
Yeah. Cool.
the cause was the main one.
Morning, Steph.
Morning. Sorry, I'm having a damp survey done, and they turned up this morning and not this afternoon. So I may get interrupted. So his way.
So we were just looking at chapter 1 and his sort of distinction between finite games and infinite games.
Yeah, I did a bit like Bruce. I watched the video,
Yeah.
and I didn't see it to conclusion. I've seen about 2/3 of it. But it was interesting when he kind of made the analogy about the Cold War in the beginning about, both parties knew they couldn't win, but they just needed to maintain it. And I never thought of it from, having done psychology at university and done the whole Bay of Pigs death. It was just an interesting kind of different take on it. And I suppose my whole kind of, the bit I did kind of review is, having worked in pharma for most of my life, you're obviously in a very cash-rich business, very profitable business. You're in a business that ploughs an awful lot of money into its employees. So from an HR perspective, it's a really good profession to grow up with. The one thing that I really kind of rang true for me is really my most challenging job was looking after the pharmaceutical sales division, because to get into pharmaceutical sales, you usually have to be like the cream of good regular salespeople, because you get a really high basic, because they can't pay high levels of commission from a regulatory perspective. So you get very high levels of guaranteed income. So you can get some really good earnings. You're never going to get the massive mega bucks of which some people do, but for the average salesperson, it's a good earning. And one of the things that I've seen in that kind of industry, which I've never seen work else anywhere else, is almost a self-managing team, to the extent that actually they used to performance manage their own. We used to have teams of 8 on a region, which would be split into 2 territories, so 2 teams of 4, and so there would be like person A, B, C, and D, and each person would sell in a different order of the products. So the 2 A's would sell the same as 2 B's, 2 C's, 2 D's. And actually what happened is the 2 territories would have competition between themselves. So although they were part of the same region, you would get that competitive nature, which obviously referred to that rivalry, but not undermining each other. So you would have that rivalry, and you'd also have rivalry within the larger organisation. But the bit that was strange is, because they would get paid the small amount of commission that they did on group performance, i.e. territory performance, you had this "we do not tolerate" poor performance. And whilst they had their contractual hours, they obviously, from a pharma rep, if you're not on the road by 7:30, you've had it, because you need to be at the doctor's surgery by 8 o'clock to wait to get your gap as you go through. So you actually ended up with this expectation model around, if you didn't kind of cut the mustard, then you really couldn't play the game.
Yeah, so that's the team. The team's playing the game, and it doesn't allow poor players.
No.
I think that is a real key part to this. Is we feel as business owners and directors that we have to manage the people.
Yeah.
But if we set the game up right, it manages itself.
Yeah, and they used to have all their marketing material, they had all their governance codes, everything. They knew what they had to do. They just got their targets, and they got coached, and they got coached and coached and coached. And that's very much the kind of the manager's thing. They would go out with their manager and be coached. They'd go out with the sales trainer and be coached, and they would go out with each other and be coached.
Yeah, and that's it. If you're playing a game seriously, then coaching becomes a philosophy within the team. Why wouldn't you want everyone in the team to be coached, to be better? So I think these are my sort of key sort of takeaways, that the finite game that people sort of focus on is you've got to win it. It's only a select people. It's a short-term viewpoint. you know, and yeah, while because I was saying to Sabrina that, you know, I reread the book last night, so I sort of, you know, sort of went through it, speed read it again, and while I agreed everything in the book, I think we have to take it into context that Simon, you know, and it's very similar to Jim Collins, is they're generally looking at bigger businesses that are already sort of there. When businesses start up, you know, very few are actually built with the infinite game in mind. You know, when you start your business, it's basically, I need to earn some income. You know, winning and losing is pretty real. You know, it is a finite game of, you know, I need to get to a point where, you know, I can put bread on the table, I can feed the family, you know, and I can have something that, you know, keeps me going. It then, from there, we start to realize that actually it's beyond that, you know, and a lot of people are still playing that game, that finite game, day in, day out. You know, the game doesn't change. They play, it's a bit like a computer game. They play level 1 over and over and over again, and they haven't realized that actually there's level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And as we said, you know, infinitely, you know, it can continue and continue. It's at what level you want to play that game at. So he's sort of, you know, in that chapter 1, he sets out this. I think the next one. That was yeah. So he was looking at the, you know, the finite sort of, or the infinite games that we play, or the things that there are that, you know, it's like life for us is finite, but life generally is infinite. So there's lots of finite games within an infinite game. And I think that's the key with business. There's finite games. So we sort of turn something that's infinite into small wins, small battles. So you can win the battle, but, you know, do you actually win the war? I think that was his analogy with Vietnam is, you know, America won pretty much 95% of the battles, but it lost the war because it thought that you could just win this. And as I said, the Vietnamese were in it for, you know, survival. It was their way of life. So then he sort of looks at these. I said keep into the game. So then he looks at these 5 areas. So the first one, as Bruce was talking about, was this just cause. You know, and he sort of relates back to, you know, his previous book, Start With Why, and he says it's more than why. You know, the why is why you're here. The cause, the why is very personal to an individual. So why do you want to be in business? Why do you want to achieve this? A just cause has got to be something that more people can join. And that for me was the similarity, for those that have read Jim Collins' Good to Great, is Jim Collins' purpose. You know, when he studied all the great businesses, they all had this clear purpose of why, but they're you know, what they're trying to achieve for the greater good. So Sabrina, what was your take from the just cause section?
This is quite relevant to me because looking back over our history for the last 12 years particularly, our business was founded in 1908. Obviously I wasn't around then, but in 2008, 100 years later, we had just celebrated our 100th birthday, and Woolworths, who was our biggest customer, went bust. Yeah. They owed us a lot of money and basically carried about 50% of our turnover was with them. So we suddenly were plunged into the depths and really knew, above all, we knew that we wanted to keep going. And underneath all of this, I think it must have been embedded in us that somewhere we needed to keep this business going for the future. We provide trees and shrubs and pleasurable things for customers, and it was absolutely vital that we kept the business going. We kept the people employed. We just didn't really know how to do it, and yeah. I think probably our just cause was to keep this business going, to benefit people in the future and to keep people in jobs. But we weren't so good at the team bit. And although, as somebody pointed out to us not very long ago, Kevin, at one of your dinners, I realise now that we actually did well in not making anybody redundant. We probably didn't, well, we know we didn't move it along as we should have done at that stage.
Yeah.
So, but I can see the just cause. Yeah, we knew what it was, we just didn't realise it.
I think there is sometimes an element of that we do things and there is one underneath it, but we don't identify it, and therefore we don't share it. And if we don't share it, then people can't join our cause. So it's a little bit like, you know, if you go back to, I know John does a lot with the Scouts, isn't it? You know,
Yes.
The Scouts has a just cause.
Yes.
You know, which has been there since Baden-Powell started it, and that's why the Scouts continues today, because that just cause is still valid today as it was back then. So when he sort of set it up, you know, if you think about it, he actually, without reading this book, he'd actually set a just cause up, and as why it can continue as long as it does. So, what about you, Andy? What was any takeaways from the just cause part?
Yeah, it made me think about sort of you know, what our just cause might be. I think it's an interesting one. I think sort of similar to what Sabrina was saying. I feel like our just cause is to look after the team, look after the customers. But whilst that kind of works internally, it's not a great just cause that, you know, externally people can say, oh yes, I want to be a part of that. And maybe it is to some degree, but it's I think perhaps we could do with having better clarity on our why.
Yeah, Bruce, what would you concur with Andy?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, agree with that completely.
Yeah, I think, you know, I mean, because the chapter 3 then moved into cause or no cause. You know, what is a cause? What isn't a cause? You know, and things like, you know, being the best is not a cause. You know, because again, these are sort of finite gains. You know, growth, profitability isn't a cause. Corporate social responsibility is not a cause. So it's and I think there is that element of, you know, just looking after the staff. Well, that's not a cause, as you say. That's not something that, okay, it looks after those people. It's a cause for those people right now, but it's not going to attract. You know, come to our company, because at our company you can help us look after the people we've got. You know, it's got to be inspiring and something that, you know, you want to come on board. So, and that's why that similarity with Jim Collins' Good to Great and his, you know, purpose and the purposes of Walt Disney, you know, to make people happy. You know, that's a great cause. So come and work for our company because we are here to make people happy. You know, these are things that inspire people to actually, you know, come and join us. And because I think because we start our businesses really to look after ourselves. Yeah, that's our first thing. It's actually, most people start the business in a very selfish point of view. You know, I just need a job, I need some income, I need to look after number one. But that gets it so far, then I think it then has to develop into that, right, okay, now it's more than just me. If I want to continue this, then there's got to be something bigger behind it. So, and, you know, working, I know we've done a bit of work on purpose with you guys. You know, sometimes it's really easy. Sometimes you find your purpose, your just cause very quickly. Other times you have to sort of keep searching for it. It doesn't mean you can't be in business without one. You know, it just helps in this bigger picture, you know, to play this bigger game. So, and then chapter 4 was really about the keeper of the cause, you know, and And this is why I think he talks about CEOs, CFOs, COOs, and why I prefer the English sort of managing director. What is the purpose of a managing director? It's to manage the directors. What's the purpose of the CEO? What chief executive officer? What is that? But he said, actually the CEO should be called, I think he called it the CVO, chief vision officer, chief values officer. They're the people that actually should be maintaining direction towards just cause, and the maintainer of the values. So there we go. Can you still see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, because I just had a bit of a computer glitch and I thought I might have lost it.
We were on point 2 on just now.
I just moved to point 2, yeah. So correct. So then we move into sort of that courageous leadership. So where do we get to? So yeah, so chapter 6 then, will and resources. So I like this. I think this was, I've been doing quite a bit of work on this. I tend to call it people and processes. Those are the two things. If you go back to our 6 steps, the leverage and the team at steps 3 and 4. These are the things. All we have as leaders of our business are the people, and the resources to do things with. So money is one resource, the equipment, and then the people. And he changes this to a sort of will and resources. We've got to have the will of our people, and the will is the more important aspect to it. So Steph's gone to see the builder. So Bruce, what was your take around sort of this sort of will and resources side of things?
I missed some of what you talked about then, so I was just moving from downstairs.
I'm sorry. Sorry, I wasn't looking. So we're looking at chapter 6 is about will and resources. So basically, will is the will of the people, and resources is the stuff that we have, the computer equipments, the money, the building, the tangible stuff. So, and he says it's as a leader, we've got to balance how we develop both of these. So, do we have enough resources to grow, to play the game? Do we have the will of the people to actually achieve that as well? So,
so yeah, from the video that I watched, I guess I probably mostly picked up on the will, and coming probably stemming from the cause and having a strong team. I don't really have any more to add than that.
Did he not? He didn't talk about it much in the video then.
Not that I recall, but he may well have. At the moment, on your screen share, you've got courageous leadership on.
This was about the sort of the leadership of, which is part of the sort of the CEO's role. So what the CEO needs to do. So it's the chief values officer, the chief vision officer. This is all part of leadership. Is that key to actually helping the business to move forwards? Because there were 5 in chapter 1. There were 5 areas he picked up. I was just trying to find it again.
I think
just cause. Well, trusting teams. Actually, what have I got?
Yeah, I thought that there's quite a bit that I liked about that. Yes, definitely the trust.
I mean, I've got this in a slightly different way. Just cause, great, and courage to lead.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting. So looking at our business, we we have a timesheet system. All time, is booked to quite a granular level, and I think perhaps some individuals within the team feel that perhaps they're too closely monitored, or perhaps even too closely controlled. And sort of listening to the video, building trust, setting up, as you said earlier, defining the rules of the game, but then trying to build a team where they can do what's needed in the interest of the company. And I think a lesson that I think I'm learning is that we want to try and build a team that has the skills to self-manage, and we don't want to be as business owners, we don't want to be too prescriptive as to the fine detail as to how things are done. We need to transfer our knowledge to the team and allow that to grow and continue to improve. And as it scales, we can't be involved in everything. We need the team and teams in the future to do all the hard work. And I think looking at some of the more radical approaches that some companies have been taking, looking at, I think, Richard Branson and Virgin, and how they I believe they've got rid of things like holiday allowance and stuff like that, and they've really taken it to an extreme where basically individuals, I guess you're set expectations, what's expected of you, but you're not told exactly how to do that. So if you feel you need, at a particular point in time, you feel you need some holiday, then nobody's looking over you, checking or counting, or the focus is very much on what's the team delivering, what are they doing. So I don't know if that relates to this chapter, but that's something that's on my mind.
No, I think going back to Steph's point of the in the farm where they were self-managing. In order to self-manage, you've got to have your metrics, and I think that there is this element of when we go through that transition of a small business where we are managing everything. We oversee it. We are the rule keeper of the game because it's our game we're playing. We then need to go to that infinite game where other people are now playing the game. They need to actually manage their own KPIs. It's a bit like when if I play golf, I don't have somebody else scoring my round for me. I score my own round. Now, there are times where I don't like the score, but it doesn't mean I stop playing the game. I understand, I understand the scoring system and how it works. Therefore, I can play the game. But I think the problem we have in our teams is we don't actually teach them the game and how to score it and what success looks like. And if they don't know that, they're reliant on us telling them, which is why it then feels like hard work and micromanagement. So there's this courageous leadership is this almost willingness to let go, and let them learn and make their own mistakes and take charge of their own destiny. And that's not easy when, if they mess up, we suffer. It's our business. It's our we feel it's our business, our bank account. We suffer personally from this, and I think this is if you look at big corporate, the managing director, if the company has a bad year, the managing director does not personally suffer. Okay, he might get sacked if it's if he's done a bad job, but at the end of the month he still gets paid. Whereas for us, if we don't make money at the end of the month, we don't get paid. And this is that sort of juxtaposition we've got of until we can break through that, then if they fail, we get directly hit, and therefore we'll always have this fear. So I'm doing a book at the moment all about the sort of it's called Thinking Fast and Slow, and how the brain works and how we are programmed for loss aversion. And he had a really good analogy of, you imagine you're out walking in the hills, okay, and it's a nice sunny day, so you haven't got any gear with you, and then the weather turns, and now it's freezing cold, pouring with rain. There's a really cold wind blowing, okay, and you are freezing, you're knackered, you're scared, and you see this little rock outcrop, okay, for some shelter. How do you feel when you get to that shelter, that little scraggy bit of rock?
Relieved.
Relieved. Yeah. Do you feel happy? Yeah.
So if you feel happy, you feel instantaneously. Well, you've kind of got to
You feel relieved. You feel a sense of, oh, brilliant. That's great. I've got a bit of shelter. Okay. So you sit there. So this scraggy bit of rock, which you would have ignored and not even thought of anything, now has you've got an emotional attachment to that piece of rock. Okay. You sit under the rock for half an hour, yeah, and you get colder and colder and colder and colder. Now, how do you feel about that rock?
Unhappy.
Just look at it.
Unhappy. Okay. So this is how our brains are designed. That they're designed to move us forward away from pain towards something pleasurable. Yeah, but that pleasure will then reduce because it needs that next thing. It's okay. So now I've had the rock. Now I need to find something. It drives us on to the next thing. Okay. So we are much more motivated by loss aversion, moving away from pain, than we are towards pleasure. And this is the problem we have, I think, with teams, is we see that people aren't going to move away from pain unless there is pain. So either we have to create it by coming down on them with the KPIs, or they have to create it themselves. Until they learn how to create it themselves, they're not going to move forwards. They're going to get stuck at that comfort zone level.
And I guess one of the things that I've experienced working in the environments that I have is that actually what used to happen is you would get no average people. You'd get some really high performing people. You'd get mavericks and really performance issues. But actually what you would do is you would go, to your point before, you would manage your metrics. So whilst you didn't micromanage them, they managed themselves. That was because they had so many clear objectives. They knew they had to make 10 calls a day. They knew they had to be out by a certain time. They knew, they had those bits. How they then plan their day and how they managed themselves to achieve what they had to do was up to them. But what you then used to have to do was to make sure that you had the systems and procedures in place to catch them out if something went wrong. But you didn't have to do the day-to-day stuff. So, I've seen some, probably there more than ever, I've seen some massive fraud cases because you actually got people who got really sophisticated trying to get through the systems and procedures we had in place.
Yeah. And that comes back to that recruit on attitude, train for skills. Because that attitude, that willingness to drive forward is, it's a fairly, it's fairly rare. It's, I don't know what it is, 60-40, 80-20. But there's more people that don't have it that I think than do have it. So if you can find those people, and when you've got those people, then you've got to work with them and give them that flexibility to actually keep driving forwards. And I know, Sabrina, this is what we're trying to do with your team, is we've got a few people now that are hungry. They want to drive forwards. They want to take risks. They want to do this. And if we stifle that, if we put blocks in the way for them to develop, then they will leave. And you lose your talented players because, they're the ones that want to push the boundaries. The average, I think you're right. There's no average. There's below average and there's high performers. but the below average people are the ones that stay, because you're not they're not challenging themselves, and you're not challenging them to move forwards. So you get businesses that are full of mediocrity, and it's easier just to be be mediocre than push forwards. Jim Collins says good is the enemy of great. So it's really interesting how these things, it does repeat it, or say reinforces it when you see it from different angles, that our job as CEO, as a leader of our company, is to manage our resources, and our resources are people and money, and we use the money to buy the people, and we've got the processes in there. So we've got to look at the players that are playing the game and help them to play the game the best they can. But if we don't know what game they're playing, go back to the just cause, then we're not playing any game, we're just standing still. So that moved us on to chapter 7, which was trusting teams, which again I think is an extension from this. I think that was the bit that you picked up. Was it Bruce that about the Greek army? I must admit I can't remember if I read that about the Greek army, but
I haven't read it either. That must be just in the video.
Might be in the video. Yeah, he probably does add things as he goes. So, but he talked about the Navy SEALs in the book, and I like. Did you see the Axis? I think it was, maybe see that one there.
Performance trust thing, page 109.
Yeah. So that I thought was really, for me, really hit home. Was we've got this high performance, low trust people that are the problems. That because they achieve the results, but they don't build the trust. In the Navy SEALs, they would rather have medium to low performance but high trust. And I think did he talk about where when something happened and the guys all buggered off. He said they make good mercenaries, but lousy Navy SEALs.
Oh yes, he did. Where was that?
I can't remember where it was now, but I thought that was really good. So in the heat of the battle, they think of themselves and what's good for them rather than thinking of the team. Whereas the high trust, low performers will generally up their game and be totally dependable. And he says that's what we look for. We look for that. I'd rather than not be the best shooter or the most physically active, but the one that looks out for their teammate and builds that trust amongst themselves. And that, I know, Steph, you would have come across this with high performance people who are just toxic in the organization, and they are so hard to manage. Again, because
it's almost like sometimes we used to find the high performers were as much to manage as poor performers, because they would just be the bit that made them amazing salespeople was this tenacity and this vigor to keep them going, but it also made them an absolute pain to manage.
And that knock-on effect through the organization, that you have to put probably twice as many people in to manage them as you would do for somebody less. But it's so difficult when they're bringing in such a big part to your organization that if you lose that, you personally take the hit, and that kicks in that loss aversion that if I get rid of you, I'm personally going to suffer, and therefore we don't do it.
Likewise, trying to keep them engaged enough in terms of like career, and a bit like you touched on a moment ago, where was what's next for them, because they then kind of want to see the next big job, which isn't always what's the best thing for them. So they would always go, "Oh, I'm moving to management." We're like, "No, actually, you make the worst manager possible. Let's keep your skills and let's learn how to use those skills further, rather than change your skill set to something you're not really good at."
I think definitely, and a lot of technicians are like that. They're very good technically, and therefore we assume like, well, now I can employ you to manage other people, but actually they're not management material. That's not their skill set, and they make lousy managers. And the other thing is pay structures. You know, I know I've done quite a bit with you, sort of Bruce and Andy, on pay structures. Is we feel that managers need to be paid more, you know, but we don't always have to be. You know, if the technical competency is there, then, you know, you pay the technicians potentially more than the people that are managing them. Just look at the NHS, you know, brain surgeons, you know, they get paid far more than the people managing. You know, football players get 100 times more than the manager gets. So we've got to sort of potentially rethink this sometimes, that actually if you've got really good tech, then make them really good technical, keep them focused, and then put the management structure around it. It doesn't necessarily mean just because you're managing these people, you get paid more. You know, it's a trap that I've seen people fall into, yeah, a lot of time, and it does cause problems. So trusting to anything else about vulnerable teams, trusting teams that came up? Andy, what's anything from that chapter from you?
Nothing particularly stands out. I mean, I can, you know, I remember a few of the examples and things, but I'm not sure they necessarily add to the discussion. Something from earlier that I was mulling over whilst we've been talking about this was sort of how the metrics and the KPIs we've been talking about really fits with sort of the infinite game, particularly if they're, you know, quarterly or annual. I think there's maybe to some degree different metrics are needed, or actually they much more need to be taken in a wider context. I think that's something that we always do, because we have the KPIs, but whenever we're presenting them to the guys, it's okay, well, you know, this project didn't do so well, but let's understand the reasons for that. And it's not because the guys weren't performing, it's because there's external factors or whatever, and try to just see beyond the numbers. So I don't know how well that works with managing a team by metrics, because you need that insight.
I think you know, I think he said towards the beginning, this is not saying that profit isn't important within what the business does. You know, that is, you know, that there is an important part, because if we don't make profit, the business can't stay in the game. You know, so I think we have to accept that, you know, a profitable business is far better than an unprofitable one, and it's a metric. But I think what he's saying is it's not the end game. It's not just about profit. It's got to be beyond profit. Profit is a, you know, is a mechanism. So it's a little bit like, you know, again, go back to the, you know, to sport, and if you take golf, you know, what you shoot on one hole is important, but it's not the whole game. You know, so you can shoot badly on a hole, but you've got to realise, well, it's just one hole in 18 holes, and a lot of people then get emotionally attached to that one score, and that can detriment their performance going forwards. Or you can see a bad score as being a positive to drive you forwards. We've had a bad year, so let's do something different, and let's make next year a good year. So there's that element of, I think, with the scoring is to understand, is to almost try and take the emotion away from it. That a score is a score. It's just a reflection of past behaviour. It's not a reflection of what we can achieve. I think a lot of us, you know, certainly as owners, you know, we look at the profitability and we go, oh God, you know, we lost 50 grand last quarter. Oh God, that means, yeah, and you as a business owner cannot help but think, I've lost £50,000. That's £50,000 I don't have. I can't do this. I can't do that. And you've put all this emotion into this scoring number. Yeah. But A, it's too late because that was last quarter, it's not next quarter. So let's put that energy into, right, okay, it was £50,000 loss. So what are the 5 things that we're going to do differently this quarter to make sure we don't lose another 50 grand? And this is why it's so hard, I think, as business owners, is to make that switch, is to not be emotional about it. It's because we do take it as a personal, a personal affray to us. Because it's our baby. It's very difficult not to do that. I think you've all had kids or got kids. It's a bit like when your kids do something bad, you feel that's a reflection on you. Yeah. If somebody else's kids do something bad, you don't have that feeling, do you? So it's understanding that and saying, well, look, you can't help that, but that is it helpful in us moving forward? And generally, in my experience, it's not helpful. It's not a helpful emotion that is going to move you forward. And I think if I look back in my career, when I was working in other businesses and helping them grow, we made loads of mistakes. We had massive negative numbers. But because it wasn't my business, I didn't have that emotional tie. Now with my own business, it's freaking hard. It's like, oh my God, it's like a direct reflection of me, who I am, but it's not. It's just a game that we're playing. So that was vulnerable team. So worthy adversary. I'm going to jump ahead because I got this slightly out of order. This is the danger of nicking things from Google. So don't put it in the same order as you would. So we're at chapter 9 now. Worthy rival. What was our takeaway from this one, Bruce?
So yeah, on the video, he was talking about perhaps having in mind a company that you respect or really look up to, or a company that you want to attain a similar level of success, and almost have them as a benchmark or have them in mind. Almost you're competing with them, trying to improve to get to their level. I guess having that in mind provides motivation, sets context, so those sort of things were discussed on the video.
Cool. Steph, what about you? Is there any takeaways for you in that chapter?
No, I suppose it's quite interesting that I've worked for organisations where I've worked in different divisions. I always remember when I worked for WAF, most of my background, I started off in manufacturing, then moved to scientific R&D people, which PhD chemists are definitely the worst kind of people to manage in the world for me personally, and then on to salespeople. And the performance is so much more easier to engage with salespeople where you create that kind of competitive nature. That whole motivational piece, and I was always surprised that obviously I'd move from different legal entities to different, but as a national organisation you'd still be there. But it was like moving from one company to another just by moving in different divisions and the different cultures. And if you've got that kind of framework and that right culture, they are absolutely poles apart from different organisations. And I remember when I was at Solvay, we did Sunday Times Top 100, and it's an interesting one, because even though you're kind of deemed to be in the top 100 small businesses in the UK, we found we used to have to communication was still absolutely key. You had to keep reminding people that they were good, and it's that whole kind of reinforcement, a bit like you said, Kevin, before. You kind of you rock, you get used to your new norm, and so having to kind of push things all the time was really important.
Yeah, I think I mean, I think he used a bit of an analogy, but the one that for me just jumped out when I read that was was tennis. And you think about where tennis is at the moment with, Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, Murray when he's back and fit. The reason those guys at their age are still performing as well as they do is exactly that. Yeah, is that they look at their worthy rivals and that inspires them to continue, inspires them to get better. Federer's had to rethink his backhand so he can deal with Nadal. Nadal was such a different player; he had to change and adapt and become better, in order to stay in the game. And they're very much of that infinite as far as they can to continue to play. Whereas if you look back to sort of McEnroe and Borg days, those two had rival, and then when Borg quit, McEnroe quit. Well, that's the end of the game. And that his last bit in the sort of the chapter was, don't confuse losing your worthy rival to winning the game. You just got to go and find something else, another game to play. And I think it is, we look at our competition within our businesses, and not all of us have competition, we certainly don't see it, but where we do, we can see that as a negative. Oh no, trade secrets, and I mustn't let them see this, and I mustn't let them see that. And I was in the horticultural industry for many years, and we've got lots of farmers and lots of growers, and there were some that refused point blankly to share their data, to go and speak to other growers, because I'm fearful if they find my trade secrets, I'll be out of business. And you think, well, you have no trade secrets. There is no secrets in this. You do what you do, and you have some numbers. And the ones that went on to success were the ones that we actually got together, because we were running an accountancy firm. We managed to pool a group of growers together to share their data. And I'd put spreadsheets together. Well, I think it was about 6 companies, and I would every month put all of their management figures together that showed clearly where they were on sales, where they were on costs, and we would compare, and we could see labour rates of you were better than labour rates for you. So you can pick your game up, but your costs over here are better than yours. So they would improve their costs. So this sort of worthy rivals, this sort of co-opetition, was fantastic. We didn't do it with every business, because there were some that refused to do it. But if you look back, those that refused to do it are either exactly where they are still or out of business.
That's really interesting, because I don't know whether it's just an HR thing, but every industry I've ever worked in, there's nearly always an HR directors group of all the businesses in that sector.
Yeah.
And you all get together and you all talk about turnover rates, sickness rates, those kind of things, because actually otherwise you just don't know how to get your benchmark. And actually, that's ultimately what you get with salary surveys. We get lots of people go, the market rate for this is so and so, and I'm like, no, that's the rate that's advertised. Actually, what you want is a really good, valid salary survey, and then without this, you can't get those, because you need actual data of actual people's salaries to know what the actual market rate is.
Yeah. And if you go back to it, if you don't do that, you're playing with a finite mindset. Win-lose. If you win, I lose. But if you play the infinite game, then if you win, I can win. I think that's the key. That's my sort of key. And it was strange because I did that at a very early age, and for me it was just normal. Now I look back and that's why. Because we never saw that we were competing against each other. We're competing at a bigger level here. We're competing against the whole UK consumption of buying flowers. That's the important thing. I want a bigger slice of a bigger cake, not a bigger or smaller slice of the same cake. And you can only do that as one small individual. You can't influence that as a bigger group, as a cooperative, then you can. So for me, that worthy rival is powerful within that, but also within your industries. Is be happy to collaborate, work together. It's open business, I think, are far stronger, than closed ones. Then some things need to be protected. You want to lose your trade secrets if there are trade secrets, but but where possible, be as open as you can. So the open playbook was really about I'm trying to think which chapter that was in now. I think that was in sort of the leadership side of things. So it goes back to that being open with your information. People sort of in businesses, I can't tell my staff how much profit I've made. If they see how much I'm making, they'll leave. There's something, but that to me goes back to that. Well, what game are you playing then? You're playing the game of hoarding money for yourself. You're not playing the infinite game. You're not playing the bigger picture game of what we could achieve. People want to work, and it goes back to the just cause. They want to work for a just cause. They want to feel that they are being looked after. They actually understand all the game and they can actually play it. So I think this comes back to be as open as you possibly can. I'm not saying everybody needs to know everything if they can't use that information, but if you can, be completely open with it. And there is that fear, of our businesses that, if I am, then people will steal my stuff. That people only leave your organization if you stop them growing. Because we all know how hard it is to start our own business, and if they were entrepreneurs, they would have started their business years ago. They'll only start their business through pain, through something that they can't achieve through working with you. So, if you can allow them to achieve that, I know, Bruce and Andy, you've just lost a guy that's gone off to work for Bloomberg for £105,000 a year.
Yeah, that's right.
So all you got to do is pay him £105,000 a year, and you can keep it. But sometimes you've got to allow people. Some people will want to go on to that next level, that they have that potential, they can go and do that, and sometimes we do have to just let them fly the nest. If we can't grow and we can't keep up, then we have to expect them to leave at some stage, or we end up, as Steph said, we end up with the underperformers. We're just left with underperformers who won't go or can't go because they're not good enough.
I guess the analogy I would have as well is I get people who say, I've advertised the job at this rate, this person's come in, but I can pay them less. It's a bit like what they were.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than people seeing, job advertised for 50, and then you make them a job offer of 40, and they kind of go, and you want them to be euphoric when they're offered a new job, and look at lots of people who just don't get that whole, it's an expectation thing, and if that's the value of what the job is worth, then neither that person's worth it or not.
Yeah. And I always, when we do the group interviews, one of the things I get everyone to do is write down. So, if we were to give you the job, what salary would you want to do the job, so that we don't have to talk salary again for the next 12 months? Because I want to know what they think they're worth. Because if I don't pay them what they think they're worth, then they will be unhappy. They might not, they might accept it for less because they don't have an alternative, but at some point they will then it will come back at me. And it's amazing. Sometimes, it's surprised the other way that, we're willing to pay, 30 grand, and they've come back and said, actually, I'd love to work here, and 25 grand would be brilliant. Just save myself 5 grand. So this was sort of, my final take. Where you can win every battle but still lose the war. The goal is not to beat your competition. The goal is to outlast them. The infinite game, for me was about the game is to stay in the game. To play it as well as you can. To bring the team up, and to have fun. To enjoy it, to be going somewhere. Every day should be a challenge. Because if it's not a challenge, you're not pushing hard enough. But to look forwards and say, look, where are we going to be in 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and make sure the team are aware of that, and then help the team to actually achieve the goal, rather than thinking it's all down to me. Our job is to build a great bunch of people who are actually motivated to actually, to achieve that goal. And once you've achieved that goal, set another goal. And to keep driving forwards. So if you're interested in Simon, and he is pretty good, I just caught this, that he is doing some LinkedIn live, sort of live on YouTube, Facebook and LinkedIn. These are the dates. So Friday the 10th.
It's July.
Oh, bugger.
Today.
It was last month. Darn. So it must be on LinkedIn somewhere then. He must have saved it. So do look, and he's going through, talking through. So I'm sure that'll be up somewhere. Damn, I was doing that thinking, oh, that's great, that's next week. And
yeah, I think they are on YouTube at the moment.
They're on YouTube, okay. So you can find them on YouTube, and if you want to go in a bit more detail for those.
You can just about catch chapters 10 and 11 today, though, right?
Sorry?
You watch chapters 10 and 11 today, though.
Yes.
Oh, today is it?
Yes.
Yeah, 10, 11 today. There you go. You can.
What time? What time?
It's American time, so 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Oh, well, that would suit me better. That's good.
So, whenever that is in UK time. So
yeah.
Cool.
I'll get them on YouTube.
So next book club, because it's only 3 weeks away, because obviously this one is late, I've decided to choose a small book. Okay, so Who Moved My Cheese is a nice little tiny
It's brilliant
book.
It's a brilliant book.
It's a great book. There's a lot of it. If you read it, I really suggest you read it again, because
I will.
It's one of those that, and I think what's happened in the last few months, it's probably more relevant now than it probably was. It's always been relevant, but it's really good to put it in the context of COVID-19 happening. And it's one of those that's got lots of depth to it. I'm looking forward to reading it again, because the first time I read it, I was a bit dismissive of it, but because it was just all about mice and cheese and stuff. But you've got to read into it about, you've always got to take it and put it into a context that's relevant in your life right now. And then I think the power of it comes out. So it's a nice little one. It shouldn't take too long to actually read it. I'm sure there's some summaries if you want it, but I do recommend you read it, because it's the story that brings it to life. Okay, so please, if you want that, we can get a copy out to you, or it's only, I think it's £5 on Amazon, or probably cheaper if you buy it secondhand. Then upcoming workshops, sales workshop is next week, followed by team at the end of the month, and then we go into customers and the others. So cool, good. So Steph, main takeaway from the book for you?
The whole infinite piece actually is that it's not about winning. It's about being there at the end.
Yeah. I think I'd say, look, winning is still important. Winning little games, but you've got to understand, those are just stepping stones in that bigger game. You play golf and you play sport because you want to win. That we do have that need to sort of win, but winning is not the be all and end all, and more people will lose than they will win. And I think the key is learning that if we lose, that's not an end result either. It's just feedback to say, look, you know, you need to be a little bit better next time. Use that, and it's the journey and the growth that is the fun bit. It's looking back in 5 years' time from where you've come from. Looking, you know, getting in 5 years' time thinking, Jesus, I'm exactly the same place as I was 5 years ago. That's the bit, isn't it? Cool. Andy?
Not what I was going to say, I did have one lined up, and then I was listening to you, and it slipped. Yes, I think just cause. That was it. I think the sort of the infinite-minded bit of it. I think actually, you know, I think for Bruce and I that seems to come quite naturally. I think the bit where we need to focus more effort is on the just cause.
Yeah. Cool. Sabrina?
Right, yes, I think for me it's to think infinitely, to think about building up trust, to be open and get the teams to be open, to be supportive amongst the teams and amongst the worthy rivals, because they are very important, but most importantly to enjoy it all.
Yeah. And get John to read the book.
Yes, I'm going to pray see it and give him the nutshells.
Okay, good. Bruce?
Well, yeah, interestingly, I was going to say exactly what Andy said.
It's good that you're aligned. That's the main thing.
Yeah, that is good. No, I think we're doing some of the right things. We definitely have a mindset of continuous improvement, and I agree. It's the cause really that is missing, and then having that really strong context that the team really bought into, and that's the bit that we're missing. So the cause.
Good stuff.
It's funny. I kind of think we have a cause, but it's not tangible.
Yeah,
you need to put it into words.
It's definitely there, but it's putting words on it. Sometimes is a difficulty. It's just capturing it in something that's simple. So, cool, good. Well, good. Thanks for coming on, guys. Good to have your input into that book, and look forward to going through the cheese book in end of the month. So, have a great weekend when it comes, and see you soon.
Thank you
for my interruptions. See you soon.
Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.